mentioned, we do have a recording available to it, so the folks who did not get an opportunity to attend that will have an opportunity to have a replay of that session. But for today, I thought it would be a good idea to do a quick recap to set the right stage for the session. After that, Ashish will take you through the how aspect and give you an overview of Saama's approach to the aggregate spend solution. So what is this aggregate spend about? Well, a key premise of all the aggregate spend laws, including the Federal Sunshine Act, is to provide greater transparency between the physicians and the industry in a way to curb possible unmerited industry influence on the prescribing habits of physicians, right? Now, we know that in most companies there are several departments that spend money on various things like the speaker programs, training events, research, advisory boards, etc., etc. And in some cases, the same subset of physicians are the beneficiaries of these different departmental activities, and this makes it extremely hard for any organization to keep track of how much was spent on, say, any particular doctor. So our beloved legislators, by passing this aggregate spend laws or set of laws, in a way are pushing the industry to put into place an appropriate an appropriate set of systems, if you will, required to accurately capture, track, and report this spend information across the entire enterprise. Moving into the why aggregate spend. Well, I read this interesting observation on a blog recently, which painted a little different picture than the usual what we hear of, that aggregate spend is expected to provide more transparency, will help funnel more money into the research side of things, will potentially help lower cost of prescriptions, etc. It actually categorized the spend as a stimulus initiative. So that was pretty interesting given our current state of the economy. But the takeaway to this point is that an aggregate spend initiative will involve a good amount of focus, effort, and money to accomplish. Now, in addition to the regulatory compliance stuff that the aggregate spend initiative will address, there is another silver lining. A consolidated spend repository across all of the departments spend in an organization, believe is a huge value for tracking and improving the many sales and marketing programs. It actually can become an invaluable tool to help optimize the spend. But just to share an anecdote, at a recent aggregate spend conference, one of the attendees asked a question related to the cost involved in, say, an aggregate spend initiative versus the penalties that seem to be stated by the laws. As you're aware, the high side of these penalties are in the range of about $100,000. The question was, if the penalty on the high side is about $100,000, why should we spend so much money on a project to do all of this reporting? I'm not sure if this person was asking a trick question, but the presenter rightly responded, highlighting the potential intangible loss of credibility and public trust that could result from violating this law. In fact, I think this is the key reason that is driving this initiative at most companies. Sure, the lack of clarity on the Sunshine Act, which we are still expecting over the next several months, has many people on the fence as to when to begin, say, on a full-fledged initiative, but the thought is still on everybody's mind. Moving on to, say, the when and the what needs to be reported. This slide, thanks to, I borrowed it from Kim's deck, so thanks, Kim, gives you a good overview of all the different different states that currently require this reporting. You see the dates, what needs to be reported, how needs it be, or who needs to report it, etc. And at the bottom, you also see that the Sunshine Law, the first reporting date is expected to be March 31st, 2013. But the key here is, given the number of states that require this reporting, by the way, this number is growing, along with all their nuances around the reporting dates, what needs to be reported, for example, to include advertising costs or not, makes this pretty much a full-time task for a team in an organization. Sure, automation can definitely help and take this a long way in alleviating a lot of the pain in this process, but the path to get to this automated state will take a good amount of effort, budgets, and will require executive commitment and support. Finally, going to the who would manage the aggregate spend solution. This is, again, been a topic of big debate in the industry of late. Given the many touch points within the organization that are involved in this spend process, a cross-functional team is a must to manage the solution, not only during the implementation phase, but even after the implementation to manage the solution on an ongoing basis. I just cannot stress the importance of the right level of executive sponsorship. You can imagine with folks from finance, IT, compliance, commercial, product development, etc. There are many competing interests, and the right level of senior sponsorship and stakeholders would help move this in the right direction. Now, the other question that comes up is whether this should become a compliance initiative. Sure, the compliance head seems like an obvious choice, since one of the key goals, if you will, for an initiative like this is to provide the legal compliance reporting stuff. But we've seen that when there is sponsorship from executives on the commercial side, it definitely helps to move this project more effectively, both from a funding side as well as the business case perspective, if you will. And of this entire team, I do want to underscore the importance that the compliance team will play, whether they actually own the system or not. They do play a pivotal role just because the key aspect to this initiative is the interpretation of the law and its translation into business rules and policies, both during the pre and post implementation phases. They do play kind of the glue role, if you will, for an initiative like this. With this, I'd like to ask Ashish to walk you through the Saama approach.
Thanks, Arnav. So now that we have the background of why we need to track and report aggregate spend, let us understand what goes into building an aggregate spend solution. We at Saama have worked on several aggregate spend implementations in the past as well as present, and would like to showcase the methodology we have adopted and mastered. As you will see, there are 4 distinct phases to any aggregate spend project from an IT perspective: the planning phase, the analysis phase, the data integration phase, and finally, the reporting phase. Let me walk you through some of the key aspects of each of these phases. The planning phase. As the name suggests, you plan for the solution in this phase. You understand the parties involved, that is the stakeholders, and clearly define the roles and responsibilities during the course of the project. And not only during the course of the project, but also post-go-live, that is during the steady state of the project. You still need to get the executive buy-in and, of course, the funding to execute the project. Luckily, this being a compliance project, funding is usually not a problem, but the cost and benefit will always be something that the team should justify. For that, you need to clearly state your goals and evaluate options with varying costs and benefits. This is typically the part of your project charter that you form. Then you develop the plan in terms of schedules, activities, and milestones, your typical project planning stuff. Understanding the law and policies, both state and federal, is then your next step. Usually the compliance or the legal department is either aware of the laws or may hire an expert in this domain, someone like Kim Life. In this, you would then capture the current spend process to understand the areas of spend, basically who is spending this amount. The different types of spend, basically what do you spend on, or the categories of spend, the different manual processes and workflows in the spend process, the different spend capture systems and the granularity of information captured in each, because they might vary. The various financial entries in your financial system or the ERP system, the backdated entries, your general ledger, adjustments, etc. And finally, you gather all the future business and system requirements with the help of a business analyst who would ideally understand your business and technology needs too. While gathering the business requirements, it's important to include the process changes required post-implementation. And let me give you an example. Like, you should expect inquiries from HCOs, HCPs on what was reported, and you should have a system to address their concerns, or at least answer their questions, and then make corrective changes as needed in your process and systems. As part of your planning phase, you need to perform your due diligence in determining our available options in terms of implementing the most suitable